Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the K.L.A podcast. We're here today with yet another history topic for episode 3 Civil Kids Next War. Now, before we get started, I wanted to thank you all for supporting me as I get started on this journey of mine. Now, the last history topic we covered was about the different religions and mythologies throughout history and around the world, and I want you to keep that in mind for towards the end. Now, this episode is different from that one, as this is more focused on a singular topic instead of being about something as broad and generic as religion and mythology. As this episode focuses specifically on someone by the name of John Lincoln Clem, the youngest soldier to have fought in the Civil War. If that name sounds familiar, it does. However, he has no direct relations with President Abraham Lincoln, other than the fact that they both were alive during the Civil War and served and fought to preserve the Union. Now, John Lincoln Clem was born August 13th, 1851, and died May 13th, 1937, and was buried at Arlington National Cemetery. As stated previously, he was the youngest decorated hero either side of the Civil War, and you will see later why he was called a hero. Now, and as an extension of that, he was the youngest sergeant in the history of the U.S., making him the youngest soldier to ever be a non-commissioned officer in the United States Army, being promoted to sergeant just at the age of 12. But we'll get to that later. Now, when he had first joined the army, he was age 9. He was 9 years old and joined in 1861 of May. Now, that may have seemed unusual for us now, unimaginable, even a 9-year-old fighting in war. But during the Civil War, it wasn't that unusual for those under the age of 18 to fight. In fact, 20% of Civil War soldiers were below that age, and this is largely in part to the Confederacy never setting an age minimum. Now, many of these young soldiers enlisted as musicians, hoping to not have to fight, but unfortunately, this was not the case, as they too had to arm up in order to protect themselves and their friends in times of need. Now, this is what Clem did. He may have been a sergeant at age 12, but he didn't join a fighter. He joined as a drummer boy. And this was an important role, as drummer boys were used to issue commands during battle, over as the drum beats were clearer than a commander shouting amidst the other shouting, gunfire, and screams of warfare. Now, the average age for drummer boy was about 12 to 15 years old, so Clem's age of 9 wasn't that unusual. He just happened to be the youngest one. More on that later. Now, drummer boys also assisted with tasks like carrying stretchers for wounded soldiers, and their presence was considered symbolic as it often represented the patriotism and innocence of their cause. Now, on May 1861, Lincoln had issued a call for volunteers to serve in the Union, and this is when Lincoln Clem had ran away. However, he didn't run away from home because he spent his entire life aspiring of war. No, he had ran away from home because it wasn't really a home anymore. His mother previously had died in a train accident, and this left him with nobody. So he ran off to fight in the war. And personally, I like to think of this as him feeling like he was unable to protect his own broken family. And so he went on to fight for the biggest family he was a part of, the family of the United States. Neither him nor anyone he is associated to, I know to have stated anything to this account. This is just my own personal views on his actions. Now, Clem first attempted to join the newly formed 3rd Ohio Regiment, but was turned down by the commander on account of them not enlisting toddlers, is what the commander had said. Right after this, uh, Clem had went after the 22nd Michigan Regiment, who again turned him down due to his small size and age, but was later won over by his persistence when he snuck onto a train that was carrying the soldiers to the battlefield. So they unofficially adopted him as a kind of mascot and trained him to be a drummer boy at the age of 10. Now, he had first attempted to enlist at age of 9, but wasn't successful until age of 10. Now, he wasn't actually allowed to officially enlist, however. He wasn't able to do so until 2 years later. More on that later. He was, however, given $13 a month as pay, a soldier's pay, as all the other soldiers pitched in to help give him his pay to help support him in the way. Now, he was also known as John Silo due to his rumored participation at the Battle of Silo, where shrapnel supposedly broke through his drum, almost killing him. Now, the reason I say rumored and supposedly is because many say that Clem couldn't have possibly participated, as the 22nd Michigan Regiment, which is what he joined, wasn't yet formed at the time. In response to this, there are those who suggest that Clem may have just been with another unit. However, there is no evidence to support this. So if this was the case, it's been lost to time. One battle he did attend in, however, was the Battle of Chickamauga. Chickamauga. Yeah. Give where he was when he finally turned the age of 12, and he was given a sod to size musket for him to use, which he later used to shoot a Confederate colonel who quite possibly was Colonel Calvin Walker. Now, the story goes, towards the end of the battle, Calvin Walker found himself confronting Clem. He had said, history suggests that he had said one of these two things. Either, I think the best thing a mite of a chap like you can do is put down that gun, or, filthy Yankee devil. Personally, I think that first option is much more likely. As you guys can probably tell or guess, Clem did not surrender. He did not put down his gun. He shot Colonel Calvin Walker and walked safely back to Union lines, solidifying himself as a hero to the Union, and was, in fact, promoted to sergeant at this point. That's right, folks, he was a sergeant at the age of 12, and I don't think anyone else will be beating his record anytime soon. Now, after this, a little while after this, Clem had been captured by Confederate soldiers. They had paraded him around the Confederacy and used him for their Confederate propaganda, pretty much putting slogans such as, "The Union are sending their babies to fight us. Look how weak they are," or how desperate they are. Pretty much painting the Union in this villainous light for sending this child to fight them. In all reality, the Confederacy never set an age minimum. So they also had some pretty young soldiers fighting as well. Now, after the Civil War, President Grant had nominated Clem to the United States Military Academy at West Point, but Clem failed the entrance exams multiple times. And even further after the Civil War, he fought in World War One. Yes, you heard that right, folks. He fought in both the Civil War and in World War One, and was the second to last Civil War veteran on active duty, second only to Peter Conover Hines, who fought in the Civil War, Spanish-American War, and in World War One. Clem had retired in 1815, while Heinz had retired in 1918. Heinz had been retired previously, but was brought back into active duty again for the war in September of 1917 at the age of 77. However, the next year he finally left active duty for good in 1918 when he felt that he couldn't conduct his military duties as well. And when he died, he was buried at Arlington National Cemetery as well. I've been to Arlington, and unfortunately, I didn't know these guys' existence then, but I'll be sure to check them out next time if I go. That's all the time we have today, folks. I hope you all enjoyed that podcast. And just know, I think it's an inspiring story of John Lincoln Clem. He faced horrors unimaginable, the bloodiest war throughout America's history was witnessed by this. It was experienced by this 11-year-old, like 10 to like till the end of the Civil War. He had been experiencing the horrors of this war, and I think it tells us a lot that he was able to lead a happy life afterwards. And even after he had retired in World War I, he still lived. He still led a peaceful life. He wasn't, and I think we all can draw inspiration from that. He faced horrors many of us can't even imagine. And he turned out all right. So let that be the lesson to all of you. No matter what you go through, you can get through it. The human capability of like getting through anything is amazing, unimaginable even. I'm not telling you I'm not telling you don't get hung up on your problems because someone else is at work because that frankly doesn't work. Like that doesn't make anybody feel any better. Just know if this 12-year-old can face the horrors of the Civil War, you can handle a bad day at work. Just saying. Or a bad day at school or stubbing your toe one too many times. Now, that really is all the time we have for today, so I'll get on with the outro. I want to thank you all again for listening to the podcast, and I hope you continue to support me. Maybe subscribe to my Patreon, check out some of my music, maybe even read some of my books, who knows. And I'm going to give you a sneak peek as what is to come on episode 4. I'm going to be starting a new topic, mythology-based, exclusively mythology. And I will be exploring the different ways that mythology and religion come together in many interesting ways, most notably Egyptian mythology and Christian lore. Both stories, ancient stories, reflect on the same exact events in almost the same exact light. There's also the interactions between the Hindu gods and the Greek, allegedly. Now, I hope you all enjoy, and those on my Patreon will see that podcast first. I hope you all enjoyed. I probably said that a million times already, but this time, I really mean it. This is K.L. Algorath signing off on K.L.A. Podcast. Have a good night.